It's tournament season at First, and the next big one at Gulfstream and ExpressBet is the Ultimate Betting Challenge this Saturday, March the 2nd. The Ultimate Betting Challenge features every race at Gulfstream Park on Fountain of Youth Day. Buy in for $6,000, $5,000 live bankroll, and compete against players from around the country for massive cash prizes and NHC seats. First will seed 4 NHC seats to the prize pool, and all cash entry fees will be distributed back as prizes. At 150 players, that's $150,000 in cash prizes, plus those 4 NHC seats. Play in the UBC on site at Gulfstream or jump in online with ExpressBet. Head on over to expressbet.com/tournaments for more information and to register to play.
Hi everyone, David Aragona and Craig Milkowski here, taking a look at one of the stakes races on Gotham Saturday at Aqueduct. The race taking place right before the Gotham is the 9th on the card, the Tom Fool Handicap, a Grade 3 event for the older sprinters going 6 furlongs on the dirt. And Craig, we've got an intriguing field of 8 runners signed on here, and there's no shortage of speed in the race, but maybe that's not going to affect the number 5, Rotney, too much, because he's survived fast paces in the past, and he's been in pretty good form lately.
He's definitely been in good form. I would say he's the speed of the speed and a good deep field, as you can see by your morning line, only a couple horses in double digits.
Yeah, Rotney's coming off a nice victory against New York breds, but you've got other horses coming into this race in form. Durante, who's been the rival of Rotney, at least a pace rival earlier this winter. He's back in here after a trip to Oaklawn, and even Super Chow coming off that local victory in the Grade 3 Toboggan last month feels like another contender in this race. And all of those horses I just mentioned, Craig, they are horses you want to be forwardly placed. So as we take a look at the pace projector for this race, while there's no fast pace flag showing up, I could see this pace heating up on the front end because all 3 of those horses shown towards the front end, Durante, Rotney, and Super Chow, do their best running when they're forward.
I think so too. Maybe not right out of the gate, and maybe that's why there's no fast flag, because some of these horses have shown some versatility in the past to be able to rate a little bit off the pace. But I would imagine before we get to the stretch that things are going to get pretty hot.
Let's go through each contender in this race, beginning with the rail horse, the number 1, Downtown Charlie Brown. We'll take a look at his last victory at Penn National, where he was the winner of a 3-horse optional claiming race, getting the job done as the 3-10 favorite this day. And Greg, this was a nice performance, a good effort for him, first off to claim for New Connections, but he is stepping up against way tougher horses here.
He is. I mean, his speed figures in Timeform US aren't that far off some of the other horses in here, but the water's about to get a lot deeper.
Yeah, you can see he's sort of topping out in the low 100s. There are some others in here that have been running significantly faster than that. And the race ratings of his recent races in particular are much lower than the preliminary race ratings for this race. The number 2 is Listen to Your Heart. We'll take a look at his most recent victory over a sloppy track in an optional claiming event at Aqueduct. And you do want to note that track condition because there is rain in the forecast for Saturday at Aqueduct, so it could come up wet once again. And Craig, Listen to Your Heart got a good trip this day, just kind of staying out in the middle of the racetrack under Katie Davis and able to hold off a challenge from the inside in the late stages of this race. He's been running well lately, but as we take a look at his Timeform US past performances, he is a horse that has caught a series of slow paces, and I think he's going to find himself struggling to keep up against a much faster pace in this race.
Yes, there is a lot of blue fractions in his Timeform US PPs. And as you scroll through his PPs, he does his best running right up near the front or on the front. So not a great sign. His last race, he got a 1:15 Timeform US final time figure, but that was downgraded all the way to a 1:08. So yeah, I think he's up against it based on the pace.
Up next, let's take a look at a replay of the Grade 3 Toboggan, which a few of these horses are exiting, including the winner, Super Chow, who was able to get to the front this day and just wire the field as really the lone speed. And that was a big advantage to Super Chow on this occasion. Also in this race highlighted there are Manua and Stage Left, who are chasing him home. And Greg, we saw Super Chow get the job done pretty decisively this day, but we also saw his bad habit on display, and that is drifting out in the stretch. He's done it a number of times, and here he's just basically running away from the rail throughout the stretch ride, finishing out this race in the middle of the pack as they come onto the wire, middle of the track, I should say, as they come onto the wire this day. He got away with it there, but you don't like to see that, especially for a horse that's now stepping up against the tougher field.
No, and I think this is definitely a tougher field. He's going to have to deal with more speed, particularly in Rodney, but some others too, as you have mentioned. So, tougher spot for him for sure. He has shown some versatility. He's come from off the pace a little in the past, but I think his best races are when he's right up front.
February 3rd, the day that they ran the toboggan, was a day where we did see a rail bias at Aqueduct. And Super Chow, while he led most of the way, he was never right on the rail. He's not really a horse that wants to run on the rail. Matty Olver kept him out in the 3 path for most of the race, drifting down to the 2 path briefly, but then really got off it in the stretch. Maybe the horse that spent the most time on the rail in that toboggan is the number 4, Maniwa, who we'll take a look at next. He briefly got down towards the inside around the far turn, trying to track inside of Super Chow, but then tried to angle outside that foe at the top of the stretch and ended up getting carried out a little bit by him. Still, it didn't seem like Maniwa was ever beating the winner that day. It was a step back in the right direction for him because he's a horse that has plenty of back class, had gone off form in the middle of last year, and he's sort of been slowly but surely getting back into form for new trainer William Walden, but he's going to have to get back to one of his better races to be competitive against this field.
He is, and he's been pretty consistent lately, running just short of that 110 time form US speed figure mark. There was a time when this horse could run in the high teens, but he's an 8-year-old now. I think those days are probably behind him.
And then the other horse exiting the toboggan is the number 7, Stage Left. He's another one that was never on the rail that day, stalking in about the 3 path every step of the way and couldn't really make much of a dent through the lane. He just feels like he's been a cut below the competitors that he's faced when he stepped up against Stakes Company, Craig. He can get a piece of it at times, and he's run some decent speed figures along the way, but a win seems like it might be just out of reach for this horse.
I would agree with that. He's a speed figure maker's dream, as he kind of almost always runs right around the same number. So he's a good baseline, but tough for me to see him getting in the winner's circle.
The number 5 is Rotney, who is that horse I made the morning line favorite in this race. We'll take a look at his most recent victory at Aqueduct against New York Breds when he won the Say Florida Sandy quite decisively, going 7 furlongs and over a sloppy sealed racetrack. And Rotney is a horse that clearly is unbothered by track conditions. He's run over wet racetracks 5 times, has finished in the exacta in 4 of those, including a few times through his recent starts. And Greg, he was battling with his rival Durante, who will meet up again here against here. 2 and 3 back, getting involved in some tough paces with that horse, and lost both of those races to Bull Journey, who has turned out to get pretty good for Bill Mott. He actually ran a nice race over in Saudi Arabia last weekend, so no disgrace losing to that rival twice. And it just feels like Rodney has been in great form through this winter.
Yeah, for sure. He has the speed figures to win a race like this. He's fast. He's in top form. The one question I have is just you scroll through his PPs. He's tried open stakes 3 times. He's been short prices every time, and he's been beaten every time and beaten pretty decisively. He's hit the board in 2, as you note, but all of those, I think he was between 3-2 and 5-2 and really failed to deliver.
Yeah, you could argue he's the most reliable of the short prices in this race, but aside from that 124 time form US speed figure 4 back that really sticks out over the mud in the Hudson, his other numbers don't quite make him a standout in this race. So I think you have to decide how short of a price you'd be willing to take on Rotney. The number 6 is 24 Mamba, and he's been on a roll lately. He's seeking his 3rd victory in a row after winning a pair of optional claiming races in December and January. And he got a very good trip here, Craig, in the last race that we're taking a look at. There were some horses dueling towards the front end. January 12th was a day where you wanted to stay as far away from the rail as possible. And Dylan Davis did a good job keeping 24 Mamba out in the center of the racetrack. But he still delivered another good performance with that good trip, finishing well through the wire. And he just feels like the kind of horse that tends to make his own good trips in races that feature a little bit of pace because he can come from off the pace, but he's not one of these horses that has to be so far back in the early stages. He can sit a tracking trip.
Yes, he has good tactical speed, and I think that's going to serve him well. I like the speed figure ascension. He just seems like a horse who's coming in top form right now.
Yeah, he's a horse that had some real excuses when he was losing races first coming into the Charlie Baker barn, but going well now. And he is 0 for 2 on wet courses, but I wouldn't put too much into that. One of those races was his debut, and the other one was an attempt going a mile. So not really a true representation of how well he can run over a wet track. And then on the outside is the number 8, Durante. And I don't want to dismiss this horse, Craig, just because of his last race, because he had a real excuse that day. First of all, they were trying to go 2 turns with him at Oaklawn, which just might not be his cup of tea anyway. And also, he lost all chance at the start. He was projected to be the low in speed that day, and he hopped out of the starting gate, stumbled badly, and actually was a good job by Ramon Vasquez to even stay on board that day. And he was just always out of position. Prior to that, he was in great form, sprinting through these Aqueduct series of stakes races, knocking heads with Rotney. He's a horse that can battle through fast fractions and still try determinedly at the end of the race to hold on to his position. So I think he's dangerous here, and drawing outside probably helps his cause.
I think it does help his cause and probably hurts Rotney's cause a little bit, assuming the gate woes don't carry over from last time. But he's had a good history of getting out of the gate, not just well, but very fast. So I would expect him to revert to that form and be a real pace presence and a thorn in the side of the favorite. And from that outside draw, you never know. It depends how early he can maybe put that front runner away.
Well, we'll throw up our picks for this Tom Fool handicap, but I see we agree here, Craig, on the horse that I hope is the price that I pegged him out of the morning line around 8-1. And I think we could get that because I think there are some horses that will take money in this race. Between Rotney and Durante, I'm kind of more of a Durante fan. I think he's going to be a better price than Rotney. And watching some of their prior matchups, I just think Durante's run a little better on a few occasions. So I view him as the horse to beat in this race. But I just think 24 Mamba's in great form, going to get a good trip, and likely could be the right price.
Yeah, that's how I see it. I wanted that price that you pegged them at on the morning line. I looked at it this morning before it was released and liked what I saw, and I like the trip he projects to get. Good tactical speed, and I think he'll be coming late.
Both Craig and I have the number 6, 24 Mamba on top in race 9 at Aqueduct on Saturday, the grade 3 Tom Fool handicap. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.